Hello. Our topic this morning comes from the book Experiencing Spirituality, which we've been reading together all month, and the assigned reading for today is confusion and the role that it plays in experiencing spirituality. My process is, when I get a topic like that, confusion, my go-to is to get the concordance out for our Science of Mind textbook to see what Ernest Holmes has to say about it, because I like what he has to say, and like I said before, I like to argue with him. Right? Find it deeply inspiring, and I found this beautiful word when this beautiful part when I searched for confusion. It says, "One cannot be a good student of the science of mind who is filled with fear and confusion." Oops. One must keep oneself in a state of equilibrium, in a state of poise and peace and confidence, in a state of spiritual understanding. Whew. By spiritual understanding, nothing strange or unnatural is meant. Merely that the belief in goodness must be greater than any apparent manifestation of its opposite. Okay then, we've got our work set out for us. He's giving us his definition of spirituality, and we've been looking at that starting from the first month. We looked at what is spirituality in relationship to what is religion and what role does belief play in it. Well, he's saying that spirituality is the belief in good despite whatever appears in front of us. Despite the things that show up. That's about being able to be in this world and not become hypnotized by it to the point where I start to forget my belief in goodness. Whew. Well, I learned at the Center for Spiritual Living when I started to come, I learned that whatever I look at repeatedly and take in becomes more and more real to me. And what I look at and take in repeatedly, well, I become steeped in it. Don't you love that word, steeped? I was reminded about that word steeped when I was watching the sequel, the second best Marigold Hotel movie. Has anybody seen that yet? Yeah. So, and in it, Maggie Smith explains in her way, she explains to Americans how to make tea. And she says, tea is a dried herb, she calls it. Tea is a dried herb, and you've got to put the herb in a cup, and you've got to add boiling water on top of it, not tepid water. And she says, and then you let the boiling water seep, and it draws the essence of the dried herb out into the water. The water becomes saturated with the essence of the tea. And as I watched that, I was reminded that, well, in a roundabout way, our minds work similarly. Because our minds, our thinking becomes saturated with whatever we are being boiled in. And we are being boiled. This American culture of ours, boiling and causing us to stare at things that are saturating us with a certain essence. So you think about that. What is your thinking being steeped in? You can find the answer to that in part by watching television. Especially if you take the TV and you turn the sound off and you just watch. And you try to see if you can guess what the storyline or the content is or the energy that is being conveyed to you. You can guess it. There's nothing new. That's the boiling water. You can see it in the body language and the facial expressions that we're being steeped in it. Oh, how to stay present. There's a lovely word there, equilibrium. It means a state in which opposing forces or influence are balanced. It also means a calm state of mind so that you're not obsessed with one end of the spectrum or the other, not overly focused on what is good or what is bad, and obsessed with the up times and fleeing from the down times. No, it's calmly looking at it all and taking it all in and not being drowned by the confusion of it, not abandoning your belief in goodness no matter what. Whew. Side story. I was remembering the movie Contact. Did anybody see that? and how it is about searching for extraterrestrial communication and finally discovering a signal from out of space. And it's based on the novel by the same name by that amazing astronomer Carl Sagan. He had such a way of making science accessible to ordinary people like me who had no training in that sort of thinking, so that we could understand and become inspired by the vastness of this creation that we're part of. Even though he himself was an agnostic and thought of as a free-thinking skeptic, still his work inspired millions of people to come to that sense of awe and wonder. I mean, I'm grateful to him because he inspired me to be awestruck, an awestruck believer in the great whatever it is, like we heard in the song. Every time I hear a newborn baby cry, or touch a leaf, or see the sky, then I go, something's going on here. Now, in the movie Contact, there's this opening sequence you may remember of the Earth, and then the camera pulls back, the view pulls back, going further and further away from the Earth, deep into space. And as we move away, we can start to hear the radio broadcasts that are rising up from the Earth and its people. And as it gets further and further away, the radio broadcasts become older and older because they take longer and longer to travel there. And so you start to hear this confusing noise and the amazing mix-up and mess that is humanity's shared history. And I found that opening sequence engaging and disturbing because it was a reminder of life. And how life can be so overwhelming with the amount of confusing information that is poured down all the time, not only in the radio waves of our entertainment systems, but in the content of the human mind and our shared story. So much so that it can be challenging to understand and figure out what anything means. I think it's God calling. There's another perfect word over there for this moment. Poise. It means balanced, undisturbed, motionless, ready, prepared. Not being kicked about by all the information that's around. Not being overwhelmed, but having presence of mind despite the confusion that rises up from the shared experience of our life history. It reminds me of the beautiful Christian hymn that Enya made so popular when she adapted the lyrics, and that part in it that goes like this: while though the tempest loudly roars, I hear the truth, it ringeth. And though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? That's poise and equilibrium and presence of mind. Now, going back to that opening scene in Contact, and I was imagining, what if an extraterrestrial race came upon our corner of the universe and they stumbled on these airwaves? Would it give them an accurate idea of this condition called humanity? Sadly, yes. And also no. Because not one of us is represented by all of that, and yet all of us come out of all of that. Here at the center, we call that stirred up, seeped tea of everything group mind. We call it group consciousness, and it contains everything. All the surface noise, all of the dreams, all of the hopes, all of the traditions of religion, all of our family inclinations, all of the inventions, all of the disappointments, all of the betrayals, all of the love, everything. And one of the most valuable lessons I learned at the Center for Spiritual Living is to not let myself be defined by that. To not let that be my normal, but instead to find my feet and ask, how do I want to be in this world? The next piece in the textbook that follows right after this is, we are seeking a definite technique that will lead our minds through a process of thought, if necessary, to that place, not lace, to that place which the sublime minds of all ages have reached by direct intuition. So when we lose our way, we're looking for a definite process to take us back to that sublime place that the minds of the ages have spoken about. The sublime minds, who might they be? The great teachers, the mystics and the saints, and Jesus and Moses and Rumi and Kabir and Hildegard von Bingen, and all of those people who have sensed and know and point to a reality that is beyond the surface noise and drama and chaos, whose teaching and message to us has always been, you are not that drama. You're born of spirit. And if you've got a definite technique to lead yourself back, it's useful. Because don't we from time to time lose our way and fall into the stew and think it's real? The technique that we teach here is just one of many techniques. It's called spiritual mind treatment. It's affirmative prayer. It's a meditative practice of dwelling upon the nature of reality, or God if you want, or divinity if you want, or the thing itself, but dwelling upon it and systematically affirming the truth of our being so that we clear our way through the junk, the spam, to a solid sense of who we are really. Spam. Lovely word. From time to time, I have to go and look in my spam filter for my email, don't you? Because I want to make sure that no good message was incorrectly labeled as spam and dropped inside of that morass of information and messages that are targeted at me. Do you ever go look in there? Oh, you ought to. Oh, it's amazing. It's fascinating. There's everything there. There are messages about how to make yourself more attractive to everyone. There are messages about how to have a more satisfying sexual experience. There are messages about how to control your weight so you are always beautiful to everyone all the time. And there are messages about schemes for how to get rich with never ever working. And there are messages about inheritances from Ethiopian princes. And there are messages about prescription drugs and how to get them without a prescription. Oh. And even though I know it's all junk, every now and then one of them gets me. And I open it. Don't you? Fortunately, spam filters, the really good ones, can, sort that all out. But I thought to myself, wouldn't it be awesome to have a same kind of junk filter on my mind? Wouldn't that be awesome to help free up the inner airwaves? Because if I were to steep myself in all of that junk all of the time, I might begin to think it's normal for me. That's how the world is. No, that's the group mind. The container for all it. It's where the average prevails. I don't want to get to that place where I've accepted it so much that I let it, the world's group mind, inform my decisions for what I'm going to do and how I'm going to be, choose on my behalf for my life. No. Just because it's average doesn't mean it's for me. There's this beautiful website, changingminds.org, and on it they talk about the repetition principle, which says that if something happens to us or around us often enough, we will over time eventually be persuaded by it. We will start to think that it is for real because repetition has that effect on us. Probably because our brains like patterns. Patterns mean predictability. Predictability is comfortable. We like that. And you know who knows that? Advertisers. They know that if we hear something often enough, we are likely to accept it as being so. And frankly, our minds don't like to do the background check. Side question. What have you accepted as being true simply because you've heard it so frequently lately? And it could be around you from advertisers, or politicians, or news services, or TV shows, or it could be in your own mind. It could be a replayed pattern from your family of origin, and you've just stopped checking if it's true. You know, on that website, they talk about an old saying that says, familiarity breeds... No, they say it breeds comfortableness. The more familiar we are with something through its repetition, the more comfortable we are, the more likely we are going to accept it. And that might be the reason why people are more comfortable buying familiar brands of products, even if they've never tried them before. They might end up buying it just because they've been exposed to it over and over and over and over and over again. So, here's my point. Why not expose yourself to something worthwhile and uplifting and wonderful over and over and over again until it persuades you that it is normal? Your new normal. That's our hope. That we have the power to create a new normal. And it goes on to say, we should carefully consider whether we are willing to experience the result of our thoughts. Thank you. I thought it was funny too, in a kind of macabre way. What is my mind steeped in, and do I want to experience the result of that? And do I have any power to redirect that? See, I think we do. When I first walked into this place and somebody told me that, I listened and I started to re-seep myself, and it changed everything about my life, from my personal identity of who I am to how I move in the world, to what I value, to what I dream about, to what I fear. It changed everything. I listened. And I'm so glad I did. But let me tell you that there is another side to confusion. It's the side that the authors are talking about in this week's chapter. And they talk about confusion as being just another part of being human. Not something to get all stressed out about or to flee away from. And they ask some beautiful questions. One of them is, what should we do when we meet the confusion that is in our lives? When we meet the experience of confusion, what shall we do? And you might be surprised or even relieved by their answer. This is what they say. Rejoice. Rejoice in the confusion, because it means that we've reached a point where we just don't fully understand something yet. It's part of the ride. It's the great mystery. Not in the sense of something that must be understood or fixed, but think of confusion as that moment when we peek into the nature of being human and find reality there. So I love that phrase in our teaching. It says, we are human beings having a spiritual experience. Yeah, and the human part is messy and freaky and crazy and untidy. You don't always have to be perfect. You don't always have to be in a state of equilibrium and calm. You don't always have to make your bed every single day to be spiritual. You can relax. And I believe that is the focus of our Wednesday evening service this week. the messy, juicy, wonderful part of being a spiritual being and the okayness of it, the abandoning of the spirit of perfectionism. In the meantime, we can practice paying enough attention to the confusion that comes from the human experience so that we take it in, but we don't let it take over. We stand in equilibrium and view it. We should carefully consider whether we are willing to experience the results of our thoughts, because that is where our power lies. I invite you to breathe in with me and to exhale into a moment of prayer with me as we each one in our own way acknowledge that something that we call divinity, sometimes we call it God, sometimes we call it life or divine love, or we use qualities to describe it like peace or joy, or we use big expansive words like eternity or all-powerful. We do this to help point our inner contemplation to that which is all-encompassing, knowing that it itself cannot be contained by a name or a religion or a quality. It is beyond all of that. Nevertheless, we try from this human perspective to raise our thought to encompass a little more of what is, so that the awe and wonder that is present all around us may have a place in our consideration, so that we may remember together that we live and breathe and move and have our being inside of this somethingness. Just that consideration alone allows our hearts to open a little more, our minds to calm and become centered a little more, and we allow the truth of being to seep into us. Through this consideration, we are abandoning all belief in chaos and confusion in the sense of it having power over us, and replacing all of that with a sense of appreciation for chaos and confusion as part of the elegant beauty of this creation. So we stand together poised to take in all that is, and from that quiet, centered standing, we open our hearts to think of those whom we love with gentleness and wholeness, to bring into our awareness our family members and our friends, believing that there is no distance in time and place. This love that we are dwelling upon, we imagine it as being available for them right now, meeting them at the point of their heart's desire. And wherever there is a need for healing, we dwell upon this wholeness that is the universe, so that our thought is available as a sense of encouragement and wholeness and wellness wherever it is needed. And we find our way to a sense of gratitude for this remembering, and we acknowledge the spiritual laws that govern the universe. Those laws that return to us what we put into it. We have faith together in that, and we understand together that it is no act of will that causes this to happen, but it is because we move and breathe and have our being within the creative mind that this very thought of prayer has an action in this world, and we are glad of it. And together we say, and so it is. And once again, a breath in with me, followed by a sigh. And we use that sigh to build a bridge, a transition bridge between that time of our service where we share with each other and our center, our treasure, to help support this beautiful work, our Center for Spiritual Living. Now, thank you in advance for your gift. Your support of the center allows us to touch many, many hearts. The numbers of people who listen to us on the radio is incredible and heartwarming, and the number of nonprofit organizations who we support in doing good work in the world is an inspiration to other centers. And as you know, we've been recognized from our home office for being an exemplary center, and all of it is as a result of your support and generosity. So as you participate today, I hope you feel the weight and significance of your giving. It is a beautiful thing to behold. Ushers, won't you please stand, and won't you say after me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal and prosper. It does amazing work in the world. And so it is.